This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop.
Got it.
Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
Wednesday, and welcome to it, my friends. Post-debate 2015. Here to analyze it and go through it with you and see if you had some of the same observations that I did. Clearly, it was not nearly the debate that the Republicans had. It was kind of boring, actually, in many ways. I mean, I guess the ratings didn't reflect much. Anderson Cooper was decent, I suppose, as the moderator. So no real problems there. But the real part of the debate that really got my attention was the debate over how soon can we get rid of the Second Amendment. That really was the conversation. How soon can we get rid of the Second Amendment? Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and then O'Malley and Chafee all rallying against the Second Amendment. Jim Webb, the only guy out there that is a bit conservative and didn't think that we should be attacking the Second Amendment. Bernie Sanders, by the way, has a B or a B- score with the National Rifle Association. His scores are pretty decent. But let's go through this, shall we? First of all, Hillary Clinton revised history in the Democratic debate when, first of all, she said she's not a flip-flopper like on the trade deal, that she promoted heavily as Secretary of State and then suddenly as a presidential candidate as opposed to. Bernie Sanders overstated by far the share of wealth being taken by the richest Americans, but that goes to the core of his campaign. You know, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I did say I hoped it would be the gold standard of trade agreements. The fact is, Clinton did not say anything about mere hope in her speeches around the world in support of the deal. She roundly endorsed the deal taking shape. In Australia in November of 2012, it sets the gold standard in trade agreements. Then she said it didn't meet my standards. Sanders said that you've probably heard this early on, almost all of the new income and wealth going to the top 1%. Fact is, Sanders appears to be relying on outdated data. In the first 5 years of the economic recovery from 2009 through 2014, the richest 1% of Americans captured 58% of income growth. But that was just in the first 3 years of the recovery. The richest 1% captured 91% of the growth in the first couple of years. Clinton, on her email practices, I have been as transparent as I know to be. Well, that part might be true. She said she is as transparent as she knows how to be. The fact is, though, she has yet to explain how the server was set up and serviced, whether she informed the State Department about her decision to use the private system, and most importantly, how it was protected from hacking attempts. And it goes on. Quickly to the hotline. Brian is on the line in southern Michigan. Let's check in with Brian before we get to the next part of this conversation. Brian, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Listening to Hillary and Bernie's like listening to Elmer Fudd and Cruella DeVille. And I would rather listen to a whole herd of cows like moaning because they haven't been milked than listening to those two for the next 4 to 8 years.
No good God.
That would be torture. And then you add to it their agenda on top of how their mouth sound. It's so annoying.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton is president of the United States. I just want you to think about Hillary Clinton as president of the United States.
The two of their it's like having the worst wife in the world being married to, and you can't get divorced from her. That's how bad it would be listening to her for the next 4 years.
Ugh. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for that uplifting message and idea. Now that my brain will be scarred for the rest of the day. Thanks for checking in, Brian. There you have it. Listening to, like a wife who is upset all the time. Yeah, well, so it is. But a big part of the conversation was Hillary Clinton and Martin O'Malley just pummeling Bernie Sanders on his gun control, or lack thereof. Make no mistake, Hillary Clinton and led the cheerleading against the Second Amendment. Oh, they're open. I mean, they had a debate. I mean, I'm more against the Second Amendment than you are. I like guns less than you do. Let's start with a comment from Hillary Clinton, and then we will get to. We got Bernie Sanders here defending himself a little bit. Let's start with that. Go.
Let's begin, Anderson, by understanding that Bernie Sanders has a D- voting record from the NRA. Let's also understand that back in 1988, when I first ran for the United States Congress, way back then, I told the gun owners of the state of Vermont, and I told the people of the state of Vermont, a state which has virtually no gun control, that I supported a ban on assault weapons. And over the years, I have strongly supported instant background checks, doing away with this terrible gun show loophole, and I think we've got to move aggressively at the federal level in dealing with the straw man purchases. Also, I believe, and have fought for, to understand that there are thousands of people in this country today who are suicidal, who are homicidal, but can't get the health care that they need, the mental health care, because they don't have insurance or they're too poor. I believe that everybody in this country has a mental crisis, has got to get mental health counseling immediately.
Do you want to shield gun companies from lawsuits or not?
Of course not. This was a large and complicated bill. There were provisions in it that
In July of this year, on CNN, Bernie Sanders said suing a gun company for gun violence would be like suing the hammer company because somebody was beaten with a hammer. He's right about that, but now he's acquiesced to the radical left and given in on that. Of course, he is the radical left most of the time. Anyhow, that's enough of Bernie. You get it. He's defending himself a B- on guns. He believes that it's okay now to sue gun companies for gun violence, which, like I said, would be akin to suing the hammer company because somebody got hit over the head with a hammer. So there you go. And here in Michigan, as the debate is playing out and raging there on the national stage, it's also playing out here on the state stage. All gun control conversations yesterday as well. Gun-free zones, the center of conversation here. A Michigan Senate panel yesterday approving gun bills that would allow concealed carry instead of open carry in schools, restaurants, bars, a variety of places that they were not allowed previously. Moving ahead despite concerns from education officials who have fear that the proposal will do little to shield students from possible violence. Moving to a concealed carry system only hides the danger, says Don Werturba of the Michigan Association of School Boards. Of course, Don is also openly opposed to open carry. You see, they have this idea that you're safer if you're disarmed and unable to. If you're defenseless and disarmed, that's a safer place for you to be. That really is the premise of the left. You have no need to defend yourself, and guns in schools just create violence. No, not exactly. We'll talk about Senate Bills 442 and 561 when we come back.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
Hey, woman, you got the blues. Guess you ain't got no one else to use. There's an
All right, I just want to hear, he said, Alex pointed this out to me during the break. And so I want to, he played this, and I heard this last night, but he said, can you imagine listening to this tone of voice and this deal for the next several years? Go ahead. It's Hillary Clinton being asked by Anderson Cooper of CNN about Bernie Sanders and gun control. Go.
Secretary Clinton, is Bernie Sanders tough enough on guns?
No, not at all. I think that we have to look at the fact that we lose 90 people a day from gun violence.
Not at all.
This has gone on too long, and it's time the entire country stood up against the NRA.
Yeah, okay. So it's time that we start pitting American citizens against American citizens, because that's our technique of controlling the world. We'll make Americans fight Americans internally, and that's our goal. We'll divide and conquer. Atta girl. That's what we're talking about, Hill. Go get them. All right, so here in Michigan, like I said, a Michigan Senate panel yesterday approving gun bills that would allow concealed carry instead of open carry in schools. Open carry gun owners have caused alarm and stoked irrational fear in some Michigan schools, prompting local rules, legal fights, and state legislation to modify existing rules. Senate Bills 442 and 561 would essentially swap those existing regulations, prohibiting open carry but allowing permit holders to seek an exemption to carry concealed weapons in schools, college dorms, sports stadiums, and other regulated venues. We're actually trying to do schools a favor, said Mike Green, Republican of Mayville, state senator. And the bill was advanced 4-1 out of committee. We as gun owners have every right in the world to carry in gun-free zones, most of them. And so are we going to give that up? We're taking a step back and saying we'll cover them up if you guys are willing to do it. And they don't even want to do that. Yeah. This battle is going to go on for a bit here, to say the least. What do you think? What do you think about this? Concealed weapons in schools, concealed weapons in this area, in areas that they have not previously been allowed. Our good friend John Lott was there. Our good friend John Lott was there, who was on the program yesterday. He's here actually most weeks. He argued that most mass shootings around the country have occurred in so-called gun-free zones, citing statistics that gun control proponents have challenged. He suggested gun-free zones only deter law-abiding citizens, but not the criminals. This sign will not deter them, said Lott. If anything, it serves as a magnet because they know it's a relatively easier way to go to attack people that are unarmed. His findings questioned by Steve Beta, a senator from Warren, a Democrat, who pointed to a Michael Bloomberg report indicating that most mass shootings take place in private residences. Statistics aside, a series of school administrators also testified against the bill. Yeah. Let's see here. Please do not have our school campuses compromised through the carry of concealed weapons, said Janice Swift, the superintendent of Ann Arbor Public Schools. I can tell you, though, this is going through, it seems. This is going through. And my kids have a right to feel safe at school, so do their teachers and everyone who's part of the educational community, Kristen Moore said, leader of the Michigan chapter of Moms Demand Action. Yeah, the problem with all this is that concealed carry people that have gone through the background checks very rarely are involved with any incidents. They keep pointing to this thing that happened at a Home Depot in Michigan here, where a woman who had a CPL fired at two shoplifters here last week in a parking lot. Nobody was hit, nobody was injured, the criminals got away, but this seems to be their rallying cry. They failed to mention the guy that was in a bank in Michigan here a few weeks ago that shot the bank robber who was threatening everybody inside, and he was later apprehended. So here's some things you need to know about gun violence. There isn't just one thing. There's a lot of things you need to know because you keep being told a lot of nonsense. The homicide rate in America is at its lowest level since 1966 right now. Dramatically lower, in fact. Over the last 20 years, the firearm homicide rate has lowered by almost half. Violent crimes committed with a firearm down 75% in the last 20 years. That's right. Violent crimes committed with a firearm over the last 20 years have dropped 75%. That's from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. Almost all gun crime, majority of gun crime, gang-related. Putting aside the fact that most gun deaths are suicides, almost two-thirds, a large percentage of firearm homicides are gang-related. I've told you this before, but you need to know that. Numbers vary depending on state. Viable solutions for reducing gang violence and, by extension, gun violence could include legalization or decriminalization of various drugs, say some. But these cartels are well-armed, and they always will be. Of all the deadly mass shootings in America, would it surprise you to know that the 4 out of the 5 worst deadliest mass shootings in world history, 4 out of 5 happened somewhere else. That's right. Anders Breivik in Norway killed 69 people in 2011. In June of 2015, one armed gunman shot and killed 38 people in a Muslim attacking Christians in Tunisia. 35 people killed in Port Arthur, Australia in April of 1996. America makes the list with the Virginia Tech shooting. And the last one was in Israel. You know, the deadliest mass killing at a school, you of course know that, living here in Michigan, was in Bath, Michigan in 1927 when Kehoe blew up the school, killing 44 and maiming dozens of others. And this notion that defining that a mass shooting inside the home is where, you know, it happens more often. Some truth to that one. School shooting numbers are skewed as well. They produce, people saying there's been 74 of them since Newtown. Not accurate at all. Not accurate at all, and I can get back to that in a little bit and explain why, but you've heard it here before. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Your thoughts at 888-900-9966. Wednesday, and welcome to it.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Whoa! They say the bigger the headache, the bigger the pill, baby.
All right, still ahead today on this program, we will have John Bolton will be with us, the former United Nations ambassador and outspoken critic of a lot of what's going on with Barack Obama and with these candidates last night on stage. We'll have State Senator Rick Jones talking about guns and gun-free zones and the ban on powdered alcohol. We'll have that conversation. Plus, Julie Gunlock will be here just for fun because she entertains me. And Larry Elder will be here, talk radio host out in California, just for your entertainment and mine. So, I mean, what a program. And right now, though, as I told you before the break, remember growing up, you know, like the Jarvik heart, artificial hearts, and the advancements being made in American medicine. It was, to me, it was almost parallel to the great steps forward we were taking in space exploration and so forth. Just the exceptional things we were doing. We don't hear about that much anymore, and I wonder why. Here to talk more about that, Dr. Myles Saunders, author of a new book, A Clean Bill of Health, Restoring American Medical Exceptionalism. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Well, you know, I do remember, you know, growing up and looking at all the incredible things we were doing, and the Jarvik heart seems to come to mind for me as one of those. The artificial heart was a big deal for years, talking about the advancements and so on and so forth, and the different things we were doing. And you just don't hear stories like that on the news anymore. And my question to you is, Doctor, why not?
You couldn't have asked me a more important question. It goes to the heart of the predicament we're in, medically speaking, as a result of Obamacare. Our healthcare system for the last century and a half has been known for the innovations and for the great specialty physicians and surgeons, which together gave us the highest standard of medical treatment in the world. And,
you know,
sir?
It just makes me think, you know, so here we are again, taking away the free market system, the ability for people to trial, to fail, trial and error, all of these things. That's what the free market system is about, you know, trying to achieve without the restrictions of government saying, well, we'll give you this much money to research it, and if you don't find it, we're not going to help you more. See, when you get tangled up in government grants and programs, I think that's where the freedom to actually learn and explore and find out great things comes to a screeching halt. Am I wrong?
You are absolutely right. You know, so many of our freedoms have been totally suppressed by the so-called Affordable Care Act. The most striking is that the budget for new innovation and to train specialists is being cut dramatically so that we can have a dummied-down system with everybody having the same poor health care. And not only has the Affordable Care Act done these egregious things, but they've done it despite the fact that there are much better ways to reform health care, to restore those freedoms that we've lost through private enterprise, the free market system, just as an example of many. You know, I was very taken by the debate last night, and as I was listening to it, it just seemed to me that the one thing that all the participants, the Democrats, were in agreement with was that more government, not less, more government is the solution to our ills. And I can tell you that in healthcare, they're the problem, as Ronald Reagan would say. They're the ones that have gotten us into this, and I can't see how more government is going to get us out of it.
Yeah, they don't understand. They don't understand, and here is the argument. You're exactly right. We're on the line with Dr. Myles Saunders this morning. You can demonstrate to the leftists, you know, for some reason Marxism is back in vogue. It's being romanticized in this country. Somehow Marxism and socialism are back in style, even though you can point to the failed Soviet Union, the failure of communism in China, the failure of socialism in Cuba, Venezuela, Vietnam, and on and on and on. And yet their answer is exactly what you just said, Doctor. The problem was they didn't go far enough. We needed more government, not less. And I'm like, my question is, in the new socialist world and the new world order that they've put together, do these folks read? Can they read books and study history and have one little clue about what really goes on? Because it doesn't feel that way to me.
Well, you know, that is the feeling one gets. I've always recognized that progressives or liberals don't make good cases for what they're doing. They simply bully people into accepting it, and if you don't go along with their PC statements, then they vilify you, and that's exactly what's going on with healthcare today. That, along with so many incorrect myths about healthcare, that they're hiding from us how bad the Affordable Care Act is, and what's coming in the Affordable Care Act that is much more egregious than anything we've seen ever. And it's going to be too late by the time they perhaps get single-payer system, and it'll be hard to reverse that. But Jeb Bush today came out with his plan to repeal the Affordable Care Act and to put into place the free enterprise measures that we've talked about, and that is a major step in the right direction.
Yeah, except that you're never going to get there, because here's the problem. The way the Democrats, let's be honest, their social programs have everything to do with being reelected. It have nothing to do with helping people as a general rule. Is about staying in power. And so when they go out there and say, if you vote for those Republicans, they're going to take away your Social Security. They hate old people. They're going to push old people. You know, you remember the commercial pushing the old person off the cliff in a wheelchair. That's Republicans, which is complete nonsense. But when the entire media machine is working at the behest or the encouragement of one side and not the other, it makes a very unbalanced approach to how we elect people. So I guess my question, Doctor, what is the hope for American medicine? If Obamacare is here to stay, which I believe it is, because you can't shake it, is there a way we can at least work within those boundaries to have it be more positive than it currely is, or are we just
there are
a flat spin?
Measures that can be taken, and I'll give you an example. One has to do with Medicaid, and before I mention what that approach is, the problem is that the Democrats, the progressives, want to retain power, so they don't want to make any of the changes that restore power and freedoms to the patient and to the healthcare delivery people. But just the best example I know is Medicaid. It's estimated at 30 million, but it'll be many, many fewer people that did not have insurance will be given Medicaid. Medicaid was never designed to be anything more than a safety net, and placing patients on Medicaid, besides being the main cost of health care, why it's so high, why there are 20 or more new taxes.
It just never ends, Doctor. We have to leave it there, I'm sorry to say, because we're out of time this morning. I'd love to have you back and talk more about it. Dr. Myles Saunders.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
It's alright if you love me. It's alright if you don't. I'm not afraid of you running away, honey. I guess.
All right, and welcome back to it. You know, finally something that makes sense in the political world. It hasn't happened since 2004, but NBC announcing that Donald Trump, former Celebrity Apprentice, will be hosting Saturday Night Live coming up here on November the 7th, so pretty quick. Darrell Hammond will be returning as the Donald. It'll be Trump's second time hosting SNL. He first did it April 2004, where he made it clear that it was far more fortunate for NBC to have him on than it was for him to be there. Yeah. You know, maybe there's some truth to that. He is a ratings giant at this point. And, okay, so he's going to be on Saturday Night Live. And that's the direction that is going because they need the ratings. Isn't it interesting, though, that Univision and NBC had dumped the Donald, right? Had dumped him, the Miss USA pageant and all that nonsense over his comments when he launched his campaign. So I wonder, is Donald Trump going to be one of the big costumes this year? Is Donald Trump going to be one of the big Halloween costumes? One of the, you know, because if you could find that hair, if you could find a Donald Trump wig, that'd be great. I'm really, really rich. I think it'd be a great costume. And we'd go with that. Anyhow, Megan Barth here, founder and proprietor of ReaganBaby.com, to talk more about this. She did some Periscope interviews, which I caught a couple last night, by the way, talking to those lovely Bernie Sanders people. But what is socialism? Well, it's not socialism, Megan. It's democratic socialism, and that's better. And I'm glad you learned that, Megan, because I caught some of your work last night. Welcome back.
Well, thank you so much. What an interesting experience. I was pretty much in the belly of the beast. I downloaded Periscope. I grabbed a friend of mine, and off we went and started walking around and talking. And very interesting. I don't know if you caught the one where I found a guy holding a sign that says, "Bernie speaks to me because he reminds me of Jesus." Well, that's my latest
of course he
post
does.
on Reagan Baby.
Which is weird because the week before that man himself actually thought he was Jesus. You know, see, so there was a little bit of confusion there.
Right. Well, Jesus was a socialist, don't you know? Well, this guy was
apparently
named Jim, and he was the founder of Gospel of Bernie. He wanted to warn me, though he's not an economist. So he was just telling, it was shocking. And so he wanted to tell me, though, that the system was going to pay for 16 grades of free school.
Well, yeah. He's clearly not accomplished. You know what? You know it should be the requirement for a fellow like that. You should have like a little 3x5 card in your pocket with some basic, fifth grade basic math problems on them, like 5. And if you can do these 5 problems, then we'll continue our conversation about how you're going to secure free college for everybody, how you're going to expand Medicare to everybody, how you're going to increase Social Security to everybody, to the tune of, Bernie's proposals, if you add them up, are in excess of something like $20 trillion, Megan. $20 trillion worth of more spending from Uncle Bern.
Well, I told that to Jim. I said, I believe I just read an article that said all of these free things are going to cost $18 trillion, and he just said that was completely false and wrong. And I said, okay, well, what about the $6.5 trillion of taxes that they're promising to raise? Do you think our economy right now, especially with our unemployment numbers, and all the business is going offshore. Can we really afford that? Oh, yes, we can. So I'm thinking that Jim and his gospel and his church must have a very large communion plate to pass around, and it never stops.
Well, actually, it's a very large bong. It's not a communion plate exactly. It's more like a hookah pipe. It's a hookah pipe that looks like a giant octopus, which they pass around, for everybody to congregate with. And that's how they get to their mathematical certainties. I mean, Megan, that's the way it works. And it's medicinal, by the way. Every now and then they see God. That's not important, no. Mm-hmm.
Yes. At one point I felt like I was walking into a Star Wars bar scene. I've said that before. It was just everywhere I looked, I couldn't make sense of it. Every question I asked, I didn't get an answer. I asked what the fair share should be of a gal who was a Bernie supporter. I think her name was Iva. She was there with her husband. They had driven down from Reno. She
what is the fair share?
She wasn't good with numbers.
Right, so nobody knows what's the fair share. It's like when I ask people that are telling me that we must stop everything we are doing because the world's, global warming is going to kill us all, and I say to them, what's the temperature we need? Where do we need to be? And they have a blank stare.
Well, I did ask a Hillary organizer. I fell into a sea of blue shirts that were for Hillary, and I thought, is blue really the color that you should pick? I'm having visions of Monica. But
the pantsuit again last night. I mean, Ivy and I are looking at the pantsuit going, are you joking? Does she have any other wardrobe, or does she just go down to Omar's pantsuit shop and just picks out 3 at a time, and that's what she gets? I mean, that's what she got. Pantsuit, blue, light blue, and blue.
I think she goes to Kim Jong-il's tailor. They seem to have this very same shape.
Just a hanging garment. By the way, you said you didn't find any Jim Webb, Lincoln Chafee, or Martin O'Malley supporters, but looking at the feedback, and I'm being serious now, Jim Webb, who I think is actually a respectable Democratic candidate, I'm not saying I would necessarily support him, but at least he has some, he doesn't have the herd mentality. At least he thinks on his own and has his own input. And by a lot of the things I'm seeing online this morning, people believe that Jim Webb might have not won the debate, but came in second behind Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, according to the Webb, of course, he's got all of his rabid followers say that he won, but Jim Webb got a lot of exposure last night he didn't get previously. I don't think these debates help Hillary Clinton. I think it clouds the water further for her. Megan, I got to run. I'll give you 10 seconds for the last word.
Well, all I can say is that I've yet to go to bed, but I'm scared to death of climate change. That's what I learned. Forget Iran. It's climate change.
Keeps you awake at night, too, I see. Megan Barth, always a pleasure.
Thank you.
ReaganBaby.com. Check it out.